All right, so let's jump into quick payables for GP. We do have full AP automation support in the GP world as well. It is going to be a little different, but again, still under the same umbrella. We do have several different workflow queue options here. I'm going to stick to the PO process though. This is our payables non-PO invoice process, but we'll go to an enter match process here. So similar situation, similar approach, emailed in, scanned in, uploaded in, any way you need to get your invoices in. Again, none of this information has been keyed in. Can't stress that enough. This has been through our intelligent extraction service as well. We did pre-populate company info, vendor, invoice information, dates, amounts, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna go and grab this invoice here. It is prefixed with an MV, so we can kind of figure out who's doing what here. But so this Uline invoice has come in against a purchase order. So I'm gonna go ahead as the AP user and click on this little pencil guy here to go ahead and edit and process my invoice. Scroll down a little bit and we'll be able to, right off the bat, we're met with our duplicate invoice number verification. So what this does is it's gonna analyze the vendor invoice number. And not only is it going to check in GP if this invoice has already been entered, but it's also going to look within KwikPayables itself. So it's going to make sure that it's not already in the invoice automation process, but not yet gone into GP. So it's going to check that. And if it does encounter it, in this case, it found 3 invoices that are in my demo environment that match, it's going to tell you exactly where they are in the process as well. So I'll go ahead and close out of that. We'll go ahead and just add ACE on the end of this to make it unique. But as you can see, a lot of information has already been keyed in. Again, can't say enough about this, that those typos, those data entry issues are going to be a thing of the past. You may have to validate some things here or there depending on your invoices themselves, but over time, rest assured it's going to be that much easier. We did find that vendor, the Uline vendor, we pre-populated a lot of configurations that are specific to them, tax schedule ID. You'll see the taxes down here in the tax summary that have been pre-filled. If you do need to augment those with anything you get, definitely can. We're also going to go ahead and display all of the purchase invoice lines to date that have been received. So in this case, we have 200 that have been received against this item. We're looking to invoice against 200 as well at a unit cost of 47 cents. If there are any problems, if there are any inconsistencies there, if maybe this invoice is only against 150 of these guys, we can go ahead and do that. It'll leave those remaining 50 open for any subsequent invoicing. Similarly, if the unit cost is changed, you can go ahead and modify that as well. So a lot of good stuff here. So if you do have a situation where maybe an invoice is a partial invoice against a purchase order and a few lines show up here that have been received, you can go ahead and delete them as well. If you have a situation where an invoice conversely is actually invoicing across multiple purchase orders, we can support that as well. So in this case, it did find this PO number here, went into GP, again, live integration, retrieved those purchase invoice lines for this vendor, pre-populated. I can also do a PO search if I do need to search for any subsequent purchase orders. So if this invoice not only invoiced against MV2139, but it's also going to invoice against MV234522, I can go ahead and grab that line as well, pull that in too. So a lot of good functionality, flexibility here with regard to PO matching. So if I take a look at this, say it's good to go, it is a match, I can go ahead and just push this straight into GP. Although if I did want to optionally route it around for approval, I can do that. Choose someone from this list, it'll route it around for their review. Likewise, if it does breach their approval threshold, it'll move on to the next individual in line. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, looks good to pay. It's a match. And then I can go ahead and submit this through, actually in this case, we actually have to match our shipment, or match our invoice to a shipment. So I'm gonna go ahead and match that. And we should be good to go here. Let's see, this is we just went through a demo migration here. So you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and not mess with that. Maybe they're messing with something on the demo side. So we'll go straight into GP and show how this invoice would have been created. So if I go into the enter match screen, which is where those purchase order match, 3-way match invoices would go into, we integrate into the additional menu here in GP. Here we integrate into the additional menu. So from tag all the way down to about, these are all quick tag options. So we do have quick tag document management support for GP. So if you do want to upload supporting documents against a record within GP, you can definitely do that with tag. View documents would be viewing those documents that have been attached to a record in GP, whether that be through our invoice automation process, or if it's just an invoice or a document that someone's uploaded against a record, you can view those as well. So I'll go ahead and look up a receipt here that has been pushed in. Let's grab one of Tiffany's batches here. So this is going to show you a transaction that's been created against a purchase order invoice that has been matched against the purchase order. You can see all the line item information. If you wanted to view the distributions, all that kind of good stuff, vendor information. Again, didn't have to type in any of this information at all. It was automatically pre-populated from our extraction service and then pushed into GP for us. So at this point, I can go ahead and view the invoice by clicking View Documents. So right here, we're going to show you the three-way match in our IntelliView, proprietary IntelliView technology. So what this does is when we integrate into GP, we also embed a few queries in our integration. So when you go to view a corresponding invoice against a receiving transaction such as this one, you can definitely see the invoice. So I can go ahead and double click this. It'll bring up my invoice from QuickTag. It's stored in QuickTag. It's not bloating your GP data. This is stored within QuickTag. But at the same time, if I go ahead and close this out, I can see the purchase order. I can see the purchase receiving information as well. So if your process is such that your receiving department also uploads the packing slips or the bills of lading or any other supporting receiving documents, you can see those right here. In this case, it's a packing slip. Likewise, if your purchase order process is such that you have maybe a PO rec form or a purchase quote form or some kind of a document that needs to be approved on the purchase order end, you can upload those against the purchase order as well and see those here alongside the invoice and the receiving information. So that's our IntelliView right there, but at the same time, you can go ahead and see that invoice as well. And that's going to be the three-way match process for invoice automation for GP from QuickTag.